Ian with eTrailer here. Today we're going to take a look at and then install the CURT Class-3 hitch receiver on our 2024 Jeep Grand Cherokee. And right now we're looking at the back of the vehicle and it looks completely bone stock because Jeep was smart enough to put a nice panel on here that's going to hide that hitch away for us. And between that hitch and wiring, now we've got our access to be able to open up to any type of towable or cargo carrier that's going to work with our 4-pole wiring here and this beautiful CURT hitch. And our hitch here is going to feature a nice gloss finish, which as much as we can see of the hitch is going to match the rest of the vehicle. It's going to look really good here on the back of the Grand Cherokee, and you can see that a majority of the hitch is hidden, especially if we've got that cover on there. It takes it back to that wonderful OEM look that Jeep perfected with the Grand Cherokee. And as far as capacities for our 2-inch by 2-inch hitch here, we are looking at 7,500 pounds on towing capacity and then 750 for our tongue weight, so that down pressure on that. You would want to double check the manual of your vehicle, make sure that number's not lower, and if it is, go with that lower number. And this is going to feature a 5/8 inch pin hole. It is not included with the kit, so please do double check our website when you're making your order to be able to get either a locking type or just something to help keep you secure when you've got your accessory or towable on there. And it also does feature these nice big safety chain loops that are easily accessible by any type of safety retention device you might have on the end of your safety chains. And a couple measurements, it's going to be from the center of our hitch pin hole out to the edge of our bumper. We're looking at just 2 inches, so that'll give you an idea if you've got any folding accessories, whether that's going to clear the back of the vehicle here. And as far as ground clearance, we're looking at 23.5 inches from the ground to the inside of the receiver tube. So again, giving you the idea if you've got an accessory that you're going to be throwing on here, how far that'll be sitting from the ground. Now we're about ready to get into the install, and I'm going to help walk you through that entire process. I did want to mention, since the fascia is coming off, this is a little bit more intimate of an install, so we'll have to take all of that out to include our tail lights. There's quite a bit that we'll need to adjust and get around to be able to get everything into place. So we're going to do that, but we're also going to be doing the wiring at the same time. And whether you're going to be running a 4-pole or a 7-pole on the back of your vehicle, it's going to give you the option to be able to do that much easier with that fascia off while we're doing the hitch. Now, if you do happen to watch the video and think to yourself, I don't want to try to tackle this, please check out our dealer locator on the website. We'd be happy to find you a trained professional in your area that can help get this installed for you. But for all those DIYers, let's go ahead and hop into it and we'll get that taken care of. So beginning the installation, we are going to be removing the fascia completely. So we want to make sure that we tape off any of the edges. We're going to have to pull the tail lights out in order to pull that fascia off. So go all the way around those, down our leading edge of our fascia here on both sides, and then we're going to have to pull back this trim panel. So just get that taped up on both sides. That's going to prevent any scratching or damage when we go to pull the fascia away from the vehicle. We can then remove the center panel, just a couple twist locks on the inside there that will take loose, and set that aside. And down below here we've got a set of 10mm bolts that's holding that fascia there. So 1, 2, 3, and 4 on each side. Don't worry about the ones on the heat shield. It doesn't look like those have to come off. So we'll just get all 4 of those 10mm head bolts pulled out. Now from here on, anything we do on our passenger side here is going to be duplicated over on the driver's side unless otherwise noted. If we find anything that's off on one side compared to the other, I'll make sure we note that, but it'll just be mimicked. And we're going to be coming over to the fender liner where we've got 4 8mm bolts that we need to remove. Now we're going to be pulling back the trim panel here. When we do that, we'll just make sure we start to apply good even pressure. If you can get your fingers under the back side of that and pull away. We'll just continue to work our way up to about where the fascia is going to be attaching to the body. We'll go one more clip just past it. And if those come loose and stick in there like that, no big deal. We'll pull that back out and slide it back into the tab. So I wanted to make sure everybody knew you don't need to panic if those come out. Now wedge something in between that trim panel, just being careful that we don't overbend because it will leave a really ugly crease in this trim panel since it's so thin. And we're going to be accessing this 10mm bolt here, and we'll remove that. Now we're going to be removing the tail lights, and to do so we've got this small plastic panel that's covering up the bolt, so just pull that away from the vehicle and it should pop out. And we're going to be accessing this T30 here. We'll remove that. All of our locking tabs that hold this taillight into place are going in towards the side of the vehicle, so we're going to be pulling that away from us. Best thing to do just to get that loose is give it a little shake first. We do have the harness and connection point that are still on there, so you can start to work this away. You may even want a trim panel tool that you can reach back on that far side, kind of working our way down. And that will slide away from the vehicle, giving access to the plug on that. And for that plug, we're going to pull the red locking tab away from the plug. That'll pop up. And then push this small black retainer right here down. You may have to work that plug back and forth a little bit to get it to come loose. And we'll set that tail light aside. Just below the tail light, we are going to be working on this little plastic plug here, and the clip should be on the outside, so just take a flathead or trim panel tool and pry away at that. That'll expose another 10mm bolt that we will remove. We will need to remove a plug on each side that's kind of in the corner of the fascia going towards the front of the vehicle. So that plug we should be able to get off of the mount. Just pushing that away. So we'll push down on the white clip, pulling away from the two pieces, and that will disconnect. We are going to repeat that on the driver's side, but I wanted to make sure to mention that if you've just parked your vehicle, do be aware that this exhaust is going to be hot, and we're going to have our hand pretty much right up against it while we're working on that passenger side. To remove the fascia, we are going to want a second pair of hands. I got Aiden helping me out here, so that way we can get this off, and then you can use the box that the hitch came in to be able to set this safely down if you don't have anything else to be able to set it down on. So we'll go ahead, reach up under the fender liner, up by where we pulled that 10mm bolt loose, work our fingers up behind it, grabbing up at the top as well, and we'll start working our way down. And that whole section should just pop away, and we'll start coming back towards the tail lights, getting all these little clips here to let go. So if you just push up on the fascia, that should come loose, and we'll continue to work our way all the way to the inside here. When we were pulling apart the center portion here, we do have the passenger side apart, and I wanted to talk about the tabs that are in here. They're just going to be these little lockers that will set up in a channel gap that's right there. You can get a wedge or something like that down in there to try to push them, but even pushing down on them didn't seem to release it. So you will have to apply a good amount of force to yank that away. But once it gets started, the rest of it should walk away pretty easy, and we'll be able to pull that loose and use that box as a nice stand for us to keep it off the ground. On each side, we're going to be removing our exhaust hangers just to give us enough room to be able to work underneath. And on the frontmost one, we've got two 13 millimeters. On the rearmost one, just one 13 millimeter. Before you undo that last exhaust bracket, make sure you do have some type of cam buckle strap or just something to help support that exhaust. Once we've got all of those brackets loose, there's not really one up until about midway on the vehicle, so we just want to give that a little extra support while we're working back on the hitch. On each side, we're going to have two bolts on the outside and one on the bottom. They are 13/16, and we'll remove all 6 on the back of the vehicle. And when we're taking this loose, you want to make sure on that last bolt you're supporting the bumper beam, because when we back that out, this will just slide straight out of the frame. And we can hang on to this and give this back to the owner of the vehicle just in case they ever wanted to take the hitch off and replace that bumper beam. Now this hitch is intended for L models and non-L models, so either way, make sure you check those instructions to see which holes you'll need to use. If you've got the L, it does mention that rearmost, but for us, not being an L model, we're going to be using these two marked right here. And then the one on the inside will be the rearmost hole. So on each side, that's what we need to get lined up in the frame. Now we can lift that hitch into place and slide it into the frame on each side, lining up those holes that we talked about. And then we will want somebody to just come in and support this. So I'm going to grab an extra set of hands and I'll show you how to use those fish wires to get our carriage bolts in place. Got that held up just by an additional cam buckle strap to help keep it in place while we get all of our carriage bolts lined up. So I've attached that to the latch and then to one of the safety chain loops, and that seems to be supporting it really well. So if you don't have that second pair of hands, that's going to be a quick and easy solution to be able to hold this while we get our hardware into place. Now on those carriage bolts, we saw these square holes on the hitch. So we're going to be feeding these from inside, and you can get your hand in there to be able to get those carriage bolts into place, but they do send these fish wires with it, and I wanted to mention how those would work if you maybe have larger hands and can't get them into the frame hole there. You'll take that coiled in, push that through the hole, and grab it, and then you can just start the threading on the bolt. And then pull that into place. You may have to adjust the hitch up or down just to get everything to line up properly. But once we've got that on there, you can either pull these off or just unthread them to be able to reuse. Then we could take one of the nuts with the teeth facing towards the body of the vehicle and the hitch, and we'll start that on. We're just going to get that hand tight for now, just so that way if we need to make any adjustments, we can still shift our hitch around. So we're going to repeat that same process with the hardware on this side. Again, we're adding one more to the side and then one through the bottom hole there, and then we'll hop over to that passenger side and do the exact same thing. I did want to show that you can just drop these into place by hand and get them started without having to use the fish wires. We do have an additional smaller carriage bolt that we're going to be dropping in just pretty much right behind where we were at for the front bottom carriage bolt there. And the intent of that is to come through this hole and be able to mount our exhaust hanger back onto that. So that's just going to replace that OEM bolt that we originally had. Slide through there, and then you can take the small serrated 13mm nut, come back up towards the top. I will say getting this into place with the OEM hardware does make getting this serrated nut onto that stud substantially easier. So just put those back into place, get them tightened up to the torque spec shown in the instruction manual, and then we'll come back and worry about these. Now we are going to come back through with a torque wrench and torque all of our hardware to the specifications shown in that manual. If you don't have a torque wrench, you can either purchase one with your order with us or head down to that local parts store and they should be able to rent one out for you. Now you're going to want that second pair of hands again to be able to put the fascia back into place, but do make sure that on both sides you get those plugs that deal with all the park sensors and everything. Those will just snap back into place and return to the spot where they were held on by the little lock retainer on the back of it. With all the panels under the vehicle in place and our fascia back where it needs to be, that's going to do for our look at and installation of the CURT Class-3 hitch on our 2024 Jeep Grand Cherokee. My name's Ian with eTrailer, and I really appreciate you watching.